And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. And so a little while back, we decided to start a race spotlight series because a huge part of deciding what your next step is knowing what is out there. And this one's exciting for us because we've had races that we spotlighted in different areas of the country. But this is the first one local to North Carolina, local race director. And so I think it's just going to be a heck of a conversation. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. Why don't you tell us what we're talking about tonight?
Well, that's good. So I think the fact that we live on the East Coast, and like you said, we talk about that it's pancake flat here a lot on our actual show all the time. This race being in North Carolina is going to catch a lot of people off guard because it does actually have 19,000 feet of elevation, which is a ton.
That's a monster
for North Carolina. But we're on the East Coast. This is not on the East Coast. This is more towards the middle of the state where they've got bigger hills, if you will. And so this is the Beast of the East 100 that we're going to be talking about. And it takes place in Kings Mountain, North Carolina on the entire trail system of Crowder's Mountain. The 100 miler is a looped course of roughly 25 miles for each loop and has a total elevation gain, like I said, of 19,000 feet. And since this is a looped course, you also have a loss of about 19,000 feet as well. The course is trails with some fire roads and can be pretty technical at times. I have read the race website personally because I have participated in the 50 miler. The description of the trails that you read on that website, it turns out can take you and not take you. It sounds a bit overwhelming. I will be very honest with you. However, since I did participate in the race, I want to point out the fact that it is a very well marked course. You can trust the race director. It is easy to follow along. You will not get lost. And so I would tell you, just trust the race director, trust the course marking. And speaking of that race director, we want to introduce you to a friend of ours. I've met him before. This is Richard Abernathy, who is the race director, as I said, the Beast of the East 100 miler.
Dirty Wolf Racing, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Well, look, this has been a long time coming. We're excited to talk about this one. Beast of the East has, attention of a lot of people in the local area. And we just really appreciate what you do for the local running community. But I think that we've got friends that are going to be running this. I think Jeff's most likely going to be out there.
I'm planning on going out there because there's a friend of ours that's going to be running it.
But so let's do this. We're going to talk about this is set up. So if somebody's listening and they want to get in on your race, we're going to kind of break down logistically what should they expect? What should they plan for? But before we do that, we like to hear from you as the race director. What is your favorite thing about the Beast of the East 100?
My favorite thing when it comes to Beast of the East, and it's really near and dear to my heart, I actually grew up on Crowder's Mountain, and that's where I spent most of my childhood at. So I know the trails forwards and backwards. I know where the mine shafts are that nobody knows about.
Wow.
But anyway, what I really love about the race is the community. It feels a lot like it's all the trail runners throughout the entire year getting to enjoy the end of the year race. It's also a race that one of my absolute favorite things is that it's a West Coast race based on the East Coast, based on the elevation change, based on how the aid stations feel, how the people love the race, and how they keep coming back every year.
Yeah, I think it's so good. And one of the things that you mentioned, I like that you put it as a West Coast race on the East Coast. And I'll be honest, when we were looking at this, and I looked at the numbers, and I looked at Jeff, I was like, 19,000 feet of gain. Like, I didn't realize, I'll be honest. And I think of like Grindstone, right? There's a couple big ones. And I'm like, man, those are the monsters. Those are the ones I'm scared of. And to realize that you're kind of, you got this race in there. I think it's great to have that kind of challenge. At the same time, I'm interested in hearing more about it because looked at some pictures. Jeff has been there. How technical is the course compared to, because when I do think of some of the West Coast, right, I think of pretty technical. So it's got a lot of elevation, but are we in the same technical arena?
Technical is the East Coast part of it, but there is some sections that have no routes that you can easily run on. This year, I flipped the course so that you do get the easy, smooth pattern mountain the first time up Pinnacle. And then you hit the 161 aid station and then the Boulders aid station. All of them have buffets on those aid stations. I love food a lot. I love my aid station captains a whole lot more. And then at the end of the course, you have that rocky section that everybody's so afraid of. So I saved it this year being at mile 20 when you're the most tired. But
And a little
also,
birdie,
well,
I was just saying, a little birdie told me that you have photographers strategically placed at the rocks in case anybody were to take a fall.
Actually, my photographer is she works real closely with Ultra Running Magazine. So she's a professional photographer that I hire, and she's really good at her job. She's also previously an ultra runner that transitioned into photography, and she makes you look really good on the trails.
Okay, so I'm sorry,
even,
let me just, it does, she is great, and she does make you look good on the trails, unless of course you're somebody like myself who the photographer was there. And the reason Jeremy wants to talk about this on the show is because climbing up to, I don't know if it was Boulder Pass, whichever one was called, which was the
Rock Top.
Oh, which one?
It's called Rock Top.
Rock Top, yeah. Rock Top quite literally means rocks, lots of boulders. And so I was climbing up there, and I'm good climbing up. I was not great coming down. And so being a naive person with poles, I was ignorant on how to use them coming down boulders, and decided that I was going to try to catch myself with poles as opposed to using my hands, and landed on my elbows. Photographer's right there. She caught me in the fall. Posted about it. It was great. To make it better, she actually moves along the course, and she caught me falling at another one. And so I fell 3 times in the course. She got pictures of one, present at 2, but yeah.
We should link those pictures.
We should link those pictures on this show. But it is, I'm going to close this part out. It is a slightly technical course. It's got some smooth trail sections as well. But anytime you're doing the climbing or anytime you're up on the ridges, it is definitely more like running on the Appalachian Trail. It's got some rocky surfaces, so it's technical in that regard. There are some routes, but they're not as bad as you may be used to on some other more East Coast type ultras that you would see. But there are some rocks, particularly on the ridge lines, that you need to deal. And there are some bouldering as opposed to simple like elevation gain for some of the sections too that you have to be prepared for. Not significant bouldering, but there are some sections that you have to do that on. Awesome. One more thing, sorry. And there is one heck of a stairway to heaven of hell that you have to go up in a section of it that is a brutal nightmare of stairs.
You're really selling this race.
It's great though, because again, I'm a flat runner. And so I never experienced something quite like this when I did it. It is an incredible elevation for you. And it's a challenge that if you live anywhere in this area, we would encourage you to check it out, because it's going to challenge you much like some of the ones you mentioned for like Grindstone and ODU and all that kind of stuff.
The Beast of the East is really special because I'm a student of LAS a little bit. I actually picked December because it is the shortest time of year. So I followed the winter solstice. So you have more night running than you have day running. Also, it's during the time of year in North Carolina where we're at, where the leaves cover all the roots and rocks. Mm. So I add an extra, Jeff is shaking his head now. I add an extra challenge that is a little LAS-ish.
I think it's great. So obviously people are signing up. I mean, if it's called Beast of the East, right? People are looking for a challenge. And Dave Andrade, if you're listening to this, we know you're running. So be paying close attention. All right, man. So let me ask this. How long has the race been around? And then what do you think it is that keeps people coming back for those that run it year after year?
Well, the truth is it's been around for 5 years. Before that, it took me 3 years to get into Crowder's Mountain State Park to race direct. So I had this idea bouncing around in my head for 3 years. So I was creating all of it. And then eventually park rangers made a mistake of contacting me, want me to buy a permit for a little group run I was organizing out there. And then I said, well, while we're on the note of it, I got an idea. They wouldn't let me do the 100-miler the first year. They made me do a pseudo 50K. And we had Sabrina Stanley the first year they came out. So we were already attracting elite people to the race the very first year. What gets people coming back to this race? At first, I thought it was the difficulty and the challenge, but I've heard a lot of runners and a lot of race directors in the area tell me, Richard, if you run no races the entire year, run Beast of the East, because you know you're a true trail runner in the West if you can conquer the beast. Does not matter what distance, 100, 50, 25, 15. It's whatever gets thrown at you, because it has such a mix of everything.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. One of the things that's cool about it is that if you're not sure if you can tackle the 100-mile distance because of the challenge of it, there's some different distances that are offered that weekend that I'd encourage people to check out. But Richard, we've laughed about me and some of the things that I've fallen apart about. I thought I trained well for this race, but I apparently did not. In general, though, what do you think runners underestimate about the race itself? And what are some things they should be aware of other than the leaves covering the routes like you mentioned?
I think what they underestimate is the cleverness of the challenges of being stuck at aid stations. The aid stations make some very interesting food groups. The 161 aid station has, this past year we had chicken on a rotisserie spinning for tacos. And then that's very easy to get stuck there because of food. And because what race has a rotisserie chicken? I've never heard of one before. But then the next aid station has vegan maple syrup and waffles. And you hit that, then you eat that, then you come back, and all the captains are very, very in sync with the runners because they've all completed some portion of the Beast of the East. So they know where the runners are. They can kind of connect with the runners during the race. So everybody knows what they're doing out there. And every single aid station captain I have is a very, very close personal friend of mine. They are literally my pack.
So
the photographer included.
On the note of aid stations, so it being a looped course, how many are there, and are they all as well stocked as what you were just saying? Like, does every one of them have something special that's going to lure runners into not getting back on the course?
Yes, every single one of them. Usually it's between 3 to 7 miles between aid stations, and every single aid station is specialized to have a different food group and something different about that food group. I think the one that Jeff was going towards before he fell down was Linwood. It had soups and cookies and fun stuff like that. And later in the night, we had pizza over there, but we didn't have pizza over there at Boulders because we were focusing more on a vegan option over there. So we focus on different menus. I really love food. I'm such a foodie about things.
Well, and that's
because I feel like,
go ahead.
I feel like food really makes a race or breaks a race in some cases.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is it has to really add to the experience, right? Like I know we've talked to Umstead, and that was one of the things we talked about there was just the variety and some of the different things. One of my biggest memories. So I would imagine, like you said, rotisserie, chicken is going to be something that when you look back, go, man, that was awesome. However, I would also say, to your point, if you're listening to that, know that there's not going to be the same type of options. And so I'm guessing a tip would be that if there's something that you want, or make sure you're prepared to have what you need, and then use the aid stations to supplement with some deliciousness. But I would probably be careful about, using that as your primary, only because you may come across something that isn't your jam if it's specialized.
Well, if you're looking for waffles and vegan syrup and it's only at one aid station, you're not going to be back for another 25 miles. And so you're going to be hungry.
It sounds fantastic, though.
It does, but maybe it'll motivate you to get you back to the next time you see it. You could have it 4 times.
All right. So that was mentioning, the question was, what do runners maybe underestimate? We talked about kind of the aid stations. What can runners do to prepare themselves to avoid a DNF? And so, in terms of preparing technically for the course or logistically, what are your tips?
Do your science on the race. Come out, run the course. You can't miss the course because it's the entire park. Spend time on rock top. Look at the views. You're not losing anything in a day just to go look at the stuff and get familiar with the rocks. The rocks will always be there. Take the time to talk to the local runners in the area if you're coming from out of town. You have to do your research on this race. The second thing is I've seen a lot of runners, really strong runners. I'll mention the farmers. They both finished the 100-miler, but they didn't finish the 100 the first time out. They had to take their time and really learn the race. And they are both extremely strong runners. I love the farmers.
Yeah, Richard's talking about Demarion and Carlita Farmer.
Oh,
yeah. Carlita was a guest on our show a while back as well, and Demarion is her husband that she mentioned on the show too. Both of them have participated in Beast of the East, and Carlita ran the 100-miler the same year I was doing the 50-miler.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah, and I have all the respect for those two, but they did their research. They had to take their time. They had to take years to finish the 100. So a lot of runners that I've seen to avoid the DNFs, they spend time on the 25-miler, then the 50-miler. They work up to the 100. This race really changes your training.
So, but on that, other than me as an example, we're not going to use me as an example. I did DNF the 50-miler, but when people come to you and they drop from the race, what is it that you hear them saying is the reason that they're dropping?
It's a wide selection of different things. They don't think that they can go back out. Part of my job as a race director is to get them to go back out because they are able to do amazing things. They just don't realize it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, barring, their leg falling off or a broken leg or anything, they're capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem is that it gets into their head.
Mm-hmm.
Because literally the race course is the beast. Not to sound so cliched about it, but it was a massively hard course. You just got to be ready for it. So it's logistically a internal battle in your head that you have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask this, because when I think 19,000 feet of gain, my guess is that I am doing more hiking, than at least any of the other races that I've done. Do you recommend stuff like incline? Because again, I'm out on my course, right? I'm not running Crowder's Mountain day to day. I would imagine, like you said, the advice is, hey, if you've got it, run it. But how much do you think incline hikes or weighted hikes or kind of building that muscle structure helps? Do you see hikers doing well on this course?
Yes, extremely well. Most people start out with the hiking, and this year's course, you'll be doing more running than hiking.
Okay.
Because there's no rocks at the start of this race. I had to move the aid station from Sparrow Springs to what I now have called it the Wolf's Den. So I self-proclaimed us part of Crowder's Mountain, the Wolf's Den now. I haven't gotten them to paint the structure yet, Wolf's Den. I'm hoping. My small legacy in this world. But hopefully people will run the start of the course because it's a lot easier. I've made the course easier. I've also added 2 hours to this year. Instead of a 32-hour time limit, you have a 34-hour time limit to this race.
Okay.
So maybe in my old age, I'm getting softer.
No. I'm going to follow up though something that you said, and Jeremy, based off your question about the idea of hiking and incline hiking. I agree. I think that's a very good training thing that most people should be doing. But I would also add the idea of making sure you're doing some form of lunges as well. So the difference in normal incline hiking and that I've often trained with is on a treadmill is that my foot is just going to go up an incline. But if you do lunges, you'll be using more of the muscles that are going to take you to climb up some of the rock sections that you need to go up. And that is a completely different muscle that we're utilizing than doing incline hiking. And so I would incorporate lunges for sure. in any kind of training for this.
Or maybe step ups, those
Yep.
types
Yeah,
of things.
yeah. Because that muscle pattern to lift you up, because it's not always going to be the same step height. Right. Even if you use like what do they call stair mill or something like
Yeah, the stair stepper.
yeah,
stair
those
climber.
types of things also are the same distance in height. You want to have some variability or some more depth to it. So that's where lunges can come in. I think be hugely beneficial for people, which is something reason like Carlita did so well because she does a lot of lunges.
Right.
Little to known fact, if a stair step is even like a millimeter off, it's notorious in like football stadiums. You could easily trip.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're mentally programmed to step in the same height versus what you encounter at a mountain. So stairs.
You?
No, mine was coming down, which made it even worse. I couldn't step down.
Sorry.
I'll put ropes over where you're at.
You say you did, or you will?
No, I have to put ropes up on rock tops so that you can identify where the trail is at night. But people use it to hang on to as they're going down and up.
Makes sense.
Unless they're all queued behind you trying to rush you. They pushed me down the hill. No kidding.
Well, we do have a famous picture of a husband and wife that the husband pushed his wife up the rock top section when you had fallen at, and their official joint trail name is the Butt Pushers. I framed it. I'm actually giving it away to a race I'm directing this coming weekend.
That is awesome.
That is funny. So, all right. So we've talked about certain ways to train. It sounds like the aid stations are incredible short days and leaf covered trails. Do you have any kind of registration requirements? Does somebody have to run something to qualify, or is it just a pretty open registration process?
I like for everything to be equal for everybody because we're all trail runners, we're all learning. I don't like registration requirements. Obviously, start at a shorter distance if you're really new to trail running, but I'll leave it up to your responsibility to know what you're capable of. And I just leave it at that.
Fair enough. Makes sense to me.
And this race is taking place on December 9th of this year. I know there's still some spots open. At least that's my understanding. That's correct. Still, right?
As of this recording, we are at we have 129 spots left out of 300.
Okay.
And then the price increase is actually at the end of this month.
Okay. So for the sake of listeners who are not going to hear this recording, we are recording today on September 12th. That time frame has already going to have taken place at that point.
Yep. So that price increase will have happened. So disclaimer, hopefully we hope for your benefit, right, that the race is sold out. But if you're just now hearing about it, go check it out and see, what kind of spots are open.
I mean, at a minimum, if you don't want to try the Beast 100, then you could try one of the other distances to get a flavor for it, or you could volunteer. One thing, though, that I did, we were talking about this before we recorded tonight. Jeremy and I were discussing the race. I've run some other ultras where I've been on a mountain or whatever, on a mesa, and there's been a huge drop off. And when I ran this particular race, yes, there are some areas that you could have drop offs, but it felt a little more safe, if you will, because of being in the location that was in the location where it is, rather. And so it's not like a typical mountain race where you're going to fall off the edge and potentially die. At least that's not how I felt. There's one section that's a little dangerous, and I can't remember the name of the peak. I think it's at Pinnacle or something like that. But that section maybe, but the rest of the course is pretty safe and everything. So it's a little bit different. So that's something I think people should check out. Do you agree with that?
Yes. At the top of Pinnacle, I try to set up a conveyor belt of ribbon to keep you safe.
Right. That's the only spot that does have an overlook, but everything else is really unlike running along the side of a mesa, which is what I've done on others. So,
and intentionally, when we're at the biggest flow of runners at the top of Pinnacle, my photographer is there for safety reasons and for picture reasons. But she's there to make sure runners are still safe too. She doesn't just have one job.
I love it.
So I say that just to kind of give people more of a flavor when we talk about the elevation gain and when they start visualizing what the course looks like. Your website, you can go on. You also have a video that's on YouTube of what the course looks like as well. So there's a lot of places you can find out more about how the trails themselves look. But let's talk about crew themselves, because a lot of ultra runners are going to bring a crew with them to participate, and they're not actually able to go to all these different spots on the trail. I mean, it is a public park, so I guess there's some areas they can get to. But what are some things that crews need to consider for the race itself?
So crews can actually visit 3 out of 4 of the aid stations. The only aid station they cannot visit is the 161 aid station because it's on the side of a road and parking is extremely limited. And we need those parking spaces for the aid station staff that's there to visually see the road, because that road never ever slows down as far as traffic. So we're also kind of doing traffic control in that spot for safety reasons. But all other aid stations, every single crew can visit and see their runner. And typically pacers can always jump in at the 50-mile mark and above.
Okay. And so can you do drop bags at any of the aid stations if you're a solo runner?
Yes, except for 161 because of space being limited.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But the beauty of that is between Wolf's Den and Boulders is essentially 7 to 8 miles. You just have that aid station in between. So you're not too far away from your bags.
Okay.
So you're only a few miles away from an aid station, but no more than 7 to 8 miles from a drop bag if you're running solo.
Exactly.
Or crew.
Mm-hmm. From crew at least, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a very easy crewed race.
Listen, man, like I said at the beginning, you do a lot for the running community. You put on, multiple races. And so for people who are listening, I want to make sure, if you can, go support. But I'm interested, what does it mean to you to have, and we'll talk specifically Beast of the East, it could be the different distances, but what does it mean to you personally to have runners come run your race?
I get to see all of my friends who I've seen for years and years, who I've known, and who I love, because I purely love ultra running. It has changed so much about my life. I've been ultra running for 15 years, so I've made a lot of friends, and I value all those friendships. And at the end of the race, there's either a handshake, a hug, whatever, just so that I get to see people.
That's cool.
That's so what cool. I value the most out of.
So it's like a homecoming. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, obviously, we're huge on community, both with the runners that we connect with, but also, the kind of the local race director community, the Vagabond Endurance guys, yourself. Like, we just have, I think, so many good people that are making positive impact through ultra running. And so I really just want to thank you for what you do there, man. And here's what I'll say again to everybody plugging in. If this is your first time being introduced to us because you found us on YouTube or you're looking up the race, just want to say thank you, welcome. We do have kind of our main podcast show where we do interview style. I would say, go check that out. Yeah, obviously, if you're part of the ERG family, welcome back. We love you more than you know. But Richard, dude, again, we appreciate it. We thank you so much for taking the time, and we're just honored to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm never ever on a podcast ever. I'm too shy.
I would not believe that for a second, man.
We'll see what pictures show up this coming weekend. I plan on riding a blue wolf.
There you go.
Does not sound shy to me. That's so great. Well,
awesome.
I mentioned, so we'll link, put everything in the show notes, your links. You got lots of other races and things. So again, go check out Dirty Wolf Racing. But anything else?
Nothing else. I think we said it during the show, but December 9th is a race. And so if you haven't signed up and there's some spots available and you're interested in doing this race or any of the distances at Beast of the East, check it out.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys, for having me again.
Absolutely. We appreciate you. And for everybody else, we'll talk soon.
Cut. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.